All right. Hello. This is Mark Delgros for LoreLink. Here to stream yet again part 2 of our deep dive. I won't say deep dive. Our dive into the Discworld Quickstarter. Last week, basically, we talked a lot about running a campaign of the type that Discworld is. Discworld is kind of a satire comedy. It's much more light-hearted of a campaign. For example, it doesn't have a combat system. It just resolves combat. It doesn't call out combat as something special. It deals with it in its own way, and so that kind of requires a slightly different approach to how you want to run it. Today, however, we're going to take a deeper look into how we'd use LoreLink, our campaign management tool. Seen here. Hi, it's me. My face. And our campaign management tool over there. Oh, I always forget. That way. My fingers are slightly off. Whoop. That way is our campaign management tool. And in case you've forgotten what it looks like, this is what the Quick Start adventure looks like. So, basically what we're going to be talking about today is how to take all of that stuff that you see over there and how to get it into LoreLink, and how what I would approach looking at that in order to best prepare yourself for running a campaign of the nature and the sort that Discworld TTRPG is. And again, to somewhat recap, I'm not going to go overly into what I talked about last week, because if you want to see what I talked about last week, you can check our YouTube channel. I'm going to... There we go. Basically, that link right there. Basically, we have a full recording of that last week's stream right there. You can check that out. You can see me talking a lot about Discworld, the systems, and things like that. All right. Now the music is starting to loop. I'm going to change it. Hang on. Give me a second as I change stations. Let's stir something on to be the background. We'll go with calming cinematics. Hey, 20. Glad you could make it. Awesome. All right. So we're talking about basically how we're going to take the I was just saying what I talked about a little bit about last week. So with Discworld, a game like Discworld, and Discworld is going to be is a lighter game. The series it's based on is a satirical comedy humorous series. This is a game you're more likely to play with either first time players, or it's a game you're going to play with people who have been seriously playing your D&D game for months, years, whatever, and they're looking for a break. They're looking for a chance. Hey, can we break off of basically this so-and-so killed so-and-so's entire family, and now we're out for revenge, and basically we just came to the village where three puppies just got kicked in the road in front of us by the big bad, and everything is sad and horrible and terrible, and you're like, we want to do something lighter for a little bit. It's the holidays. Can we do something a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more basically, a little bit more in the spirit of the season, or just a change, a break. And so you're like, basically that's why you're going to come in here and you're going to be like, hey, yeah, sure, Discworld. Discworld released a Down with the Puppy Kickers. Yes, they're awful. Basically, Discworld TTRPG released this quick start guide, which is just basically available for free on Modiphius's website. So you could pick that up and just play through. That Up in Smoke campaign is right there. You can pull that out. All of the gameplay stuff that you need to run the Quick Start adventure is right there in that PDF as well. So you don't have to worry about, do I need to get the full adventure in order to actually play the Quick Start or anything like that. That's not a problem. You can basically, the rules are straightforward. Again, how this system works is you're taking any action the players take. They try to convince you using the stuff that's on their character sheet, which are just traits that they have. They try to convince you, hey, I think this trait means that my character could do this action well. And if you believe them, you give them a D12. If you don't believe them, you give them the D4. If you believe them in various ranges in betweens, you give them a D6 or a D10. And that basically gives you a range of options to give them. Then you roll the D8 that you kept behind to see how much the story demands to stay the same in the framework of the system. And if your roll is better than theirs, that they suffer whatever consequences you established before they rolled. Basically, if they were trying to do something momentous and huge and basically big payoff means big consequences. Something minor, basically minor consequences. Bruised toe, stubbed toe, something like that. It's basically kind of smelly. If something happens, things like that. And so that's the system. Quick, straightforward, basically easy. There's some other additional mechanics in terms of how you can get rerolls and things like that, and 1,000,001 chances. And I'm sure that the full book, when it releases, will have more rules. Basically not more rules necessary, but more scenarios and random stuff that can happen. And so, as such, you're like, okay, I want to run this game for either my standard group, or we're going to take it as a break, or I'm going to run it for my family. Basically over the holidays, I want to grab something which is, basically fun, kind of fun. And you want to be able to just basically be able to pull it out and be like, hey, let's do something fun. And maybe your dad, or maybe your uncle, or maybe your friends are all like, oh yeah, we love the Discworld books. They're great. And basically we'd love to play around in that world and that sense of humor. And it kind of sets the tone for the type of game you're going for. You're not going to take a game in a city called Ankh-Morpork too seriously, probably. Or Ankh-Morpork. I think Ankh-Morpork is the technical pronunciation. In any case. So, what are you going to do to prepare for that game? And how can Lurlink, our campaign management tool, again, seen there, how can that help you? So, the answer is, basically, there's two things. One, and this is kind of a cheating. This is my cheating approach to Lurlink can help you with any game system, because we're basically going through the game system piece by piece and moving it into pulling out key parts and moving it into Lurlink helps reinforce the system in your head. Yes, that's kind of a cheap answer, because a notepad could do the same thing. We'll get more into the technical parts, but the reason why that's important is you want to reinforce the campaign in your head is more so than with a D&D game. Let's say we'll just use that as a world-leading fantasy campaign. If you want to not use the name, it's fine. You want to be able to pull, basically, in a comedy type game, or a game with new players, or in a game where things, it's a game of, basically, kind of lighthearted game like this, keeping things moving quickly is going to be key to everybody enjoying what's going on. And so you don't want to spend a lot of time stopping and going over rules, which is why the system is designed the way it is. Hey, I don't think that's right. D4. Oh, I think that's right. D10. Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. D12. Done. Simple. Move forward. Keep moving. One set of dice. You're just basically, it's bam, 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 bam. Let the narrative flow. Let the players tell their story, and let the dice add just that little bit of chaos, which can make things fun. Oh, that's a great idea, but man, you rolled low, and now you've got to deal with that and come up with an even crazier plan. Basically, keep going. Basically, we're throwing complications in just basically because we enjoy things. We want to keep things moving. It is less important that the rules are basically that it's like, oh, you can't do that because that's a 3-action ability, and you've used 1 action already, and you can't do that without having the 7th level spell cast available, etc., etc., etc. That's not the tone that this game is going for. If you have a rules lawyer at the table, they shouldn't be getting too bent out of shape about this game, otherwise you're doing it wrong. And so the key to that, basically, in terms of reading through the adventure relatively carefully, can give you some of that reinforcement of, oh, I need to know, basically, kind of figure out where things are. I need to figure out what the plot is. I need to go through the clues and things like that so that I can pull things out relatively quickly. However, that does lead us to the second reason why you should put things into lore link, and that is the fact that this will help you jump basically when you do, if you don't remember things, which you may or may not, because hey, you might be showing up on basically showing up on Thanksgiving to Friendsgiving or something like that, and they're like, oh hey, we really want basically we decided we talked before we came, we decided we really want to play a game, basically we realized that our friend, basically this friend over here, has never played. They've never played a game before, and you're a great GM. So could you throw something together for us, basically for this evening? Basically, yeah, you've got until basically the meal's still cooking, so you've got all that time to prepare. You could throw something together quickly, right? Having it in LoreLink and having LoreLink available on your phone means that you can quickly pull up, basically go through these things. Basically, and be able to be like, remind yourself of key points, remember where things are, either before the game or even during the game. And you're not basically not searching through necessarily a PDF to figure out where all the key points are and things like that. You're like, oh, okay, this is it. This is this. This is this. Cool. So, all of that said, where would I start with an adventure like this? And the answer to that is the key thing that I've got limited time. I'm putting this together. What areas am I going to focus on first? What areas am I going to focus on putting more detail in as I have more time? I'm going to start with locations. Like that page I just showed you in here. You got kind of a small map down there at the bottom. You've got locations which connect to other locations, which are connected by kind of a central area. You got West Bank and you've got East Bank. Cool. Basically, it's a relatively simple map. You're not basically most of what you want to remember is what's stuff on the West Bank, what's stuff on the East Bank. But here's the big reason why I want to do locations. In a game like basically in a comedy game like this, you have to be prepared that your players are not going to stay put properly. They're not going to be like, hey, you know what? We shouldn't split the party. We shouldn't take off in 6 different directions at once. We shouldn't abandon the scene in the middle of it and drag it halfway across, basically drag it into a different area without any cares or anything like that. Obviously, with D&D adventuring and things like that, there's the risk of character death. There's just that expectation that players have built in. They're like, oh, this is proper etiquette for things you don't do to torment the DM. You don't immediately go into the dungeon and split into 6 groups, and each of you goes through a different door, and you keep trying to maneuver through the dungeon throughout the rest, basically just however you can. There's kind of that expectation. It's just, A, you're probably going to get killed. B, it's impolite to the GM, etc., etc. However, in a game like this, that may happen because A, you may be playing with people who don't really understand the etiquette of role-playing games, if you're playing with just a group of friends who have never really role-played before. B, if you're doing it to blow off steam after a hard and complicated things, they're going to want to do dumb things. They're not, especially as a one-shot, they're not attached to the characters. They want fun comedy moments, and so they're going to do the fun comedy thing. And if the fun comedy thing is, hey, yeah, I'm being chased by a troll, but it would be really funny if this troll ended up in this house, basically where another of my friends are, 2 blocks that way. I'm just going to drag them, though. I'm just going to drag it that way. And you had better be prepared for, oh gosh, they're taking the cart full of flaming material and they're dragging it towards the cobbler's shop. Okay, hang on. Basically, you don't want to hang on, basically do that. You can get a little bit, but you want to be able to react quickly. Because again, like I talked about earlier, getting that snappiness to this is going to be basically going to be what the players are going to expect and kind of what you kind of want to reinforce. So, along those lines, let's take a look at... Okay, we've got the images in there. Do I already have... Let me see here. 1 second. Do I have the map already set up? Boop-doop-doo. RPG. as I go through my vast folders of 16 different campaigns that I have run, taken apart. Okay, I have not done that yet. Okay, cool. So let's just grab that image out. Yep. Okay, how nice are you going to be, PDF? Is PDF going to play nicely, or is this PDF going to be its own thing? This PDF is going to be its own thing. Okay, cool. That's fine. Well, we have screen capture for. It's all good. It all works out. Again, I'm doing this for personal use. Not reselling this. So we are just going to grab that image, sell that, especially sell that, save that. View location, save that, check the size, make sure it fits into our 10 meg limit. No, I have a 10 meg limit because of the fact that I am in the system as a multiverse user. We do have restrictions on how big your files can be, based on... Did I crop properly? No, I crop properly. Just... Okay. Let's just pull this up in smoke map. Map showing 6 locations divided by the... Oh, I just canceled out of that. I pressed escape in the wrong place. Up in smoke. Bridge map. Cool. Okay. As you can see, I can assign keywords here if I want to be able to find these later. That's going to help sort things out. Things like map, Discworld, Ankh-Morpork. I'm always terrible with making sure I spell this right. Yes, it is just Morpork. Oops, I left the field, so it was very generous. Save it for me. Okay, alt text. Because alt text is always good if you want to make sure that your users who may be accessing the web through alternate means, they can't. That's good. You want to make sure they want to be able to participate. It's the east and west banks of the map. East bank contains Yep. Sanctuary, lamps and noodles, times bucket. That contains Novelers and Sun, Miss Ethan's boarding house, and stone on stone. Perfect. Key locations. I want to make sure to save that in the Discworld folder. Boop. Save that. And we'll upload that. There we go. Now I can select that as my image. Insert that as the map. I can save that. So now I have the map of Ankh-Morpork. I did double check. It is KH. I always get that backwards for some reason. Ankh, as opposed to I guess the Ankh would be the way you pronounce it the other way. Okay. So now I've got that map in here. You can see I've got it on here. Basically, you can see last time we added some of these things. We added some of those locations. Let's go ahead and create the rest. The Sunshine Sanctuary. We're going to add Long and Needles. or lamp and needles rather. And then we're going to add, last but not least, the times and the bucket. Let's save that. So now we have that. Oh, we want the bridge as well, as that is its own location. Over the river Ankh. Misbegot Bridge. Okay, so now we have all those locations in there, and now I can just quickly come in here. And that's with Ethan's boarding house. That's Novelers and Sons. That's Stone on Stone. That's Misbegot Bridge. That's Sunshine Sanctuary. That's Lamp and Needles. And that's the times and the bucket. Perfect. Okay. Now I've got all of those in there. And so now when I'm actually playing, if I come in here to view, you can see all of these things are available. And if I click on one of them, I get taken directly to that item. So again, this just helps to keep me moving and keep me on track during the game. So I'm not stopping and going, oh, wait, your Noveler and Sons is where? Where does that go? Where does that connect? I've got a single map that I can quickly reference and quickly hop from point to point to point without having to go back, scroll, find out, figure out where things are. I've got them all listed right here, and I don't have to remember which ones are on the East Bank, which ones are on the West Bank. So if you wanted to basically take a rampaging mob and take them from the times and bucket, and you're like, oh, we're going to go to Stone on Stone, you're like, okay, you're going to cross the bridge to do that. And they'll be like, oh, okay. You've got that all set up. So that takes care of that. And so I have to increase the size of something so I can look at it slightly better. Okay. So again, basically, so we've got those things, and we're going to go down. We're going to break down into each of the individual areas. We'll start with the West Bank here. So we'll go with Ms. Ethan's boarding house. I can click on it and get taken there. Perfect. All right. Let's go into edit mode. So with Ethan's basically boarding house. Okay. Basically, so we've got something going on. So in this thing, basically, we may want to basically have a read aloud, which is gives us a little bit of a description. Uneven cobbles, the smell of smoke, gawping crowds is what the book lists as the first thing. And then it also gives us a little bit more. Let's get a little bit more to talk about here. Got that. All right, let's deal with getting that formatted slightly nicer. Oop. Always better to keep that a little bit nicer. Boop, boop. I'll do it that way, yep. Basically, first thing it does for the street, I think it cares. That, burning possessions, basically into the street. And so, there's a couple different ways we can organize this. So there are people who are here. There are clues for the overall mystery which are located here. There are consequences that you can give out to the players if they fail skill checks in the area. Again, remember, basically the idea of the fact is you roll, if you succeed, you do whatever you're doing. If you fail, depending on the level of the failure, you're going to hand out some kind of consequence to the player, and this gives you some obvious one. There are the obvious ones that may be direct reactions of it, but they're like, oh, hey, you're in an area of a burning house, and so they're like, hey. So the player might gain a trait nasty burns, or something like that, to be like, hey, you've got to deal with this. Um, basically, ire things. Basically, you can gauge it. Basically, the ire of somebody. You can basically the building collapses, trapping somebody. Um, so you've got all of that. And so you're like, okay, we've got that. So let's figure out basically like the burning possessions has its own entry basically in terms of we could if we wanted to call things out and have them available else for use elsewhere in the system. I could create it as its own separate item. So I could go here, item, burning possessions. And then I could take the description that they give me. And put that in the description. Okay. I could do that, and then if I wanted to, rather than just having this here as burning possessions, I could do that, items, burning possessions, and I could tag that there. Now, basically, the advantage to doing that is if I want to assign that to a character, to say that a character picked up one of burning possessions, I now can add that tag to a particular player. Let's give I create a player, if I have James Jameson, basically I could say formerly items. I could even mark the location like that. And now I can have that. I can have it either as part of their description, if I wanted to, or I could add it as a note. James Jameson, who do you think you are, Stanley? Well, I mean, it was either that or John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, but, you know, I figured that was a bit of a stretch. I was trying to think of a good Discworld name. And, you know, Discworld, what gives you names like Corporal Knobs, Vime, Carrot, Angulia, all of those kind of good names. So, basically, so I can also add that as a note. And we'll talk more about what notes do, basically, in a bit when we talk more about how we're going to use Lord Link when we actually play. So, but in any case, now I've got that nailed down. So I could share that way, and that way if I'm looking at stuff, I can be like, oh, that's right. He picked up the possessions from the, basically, he picked up the possessions of the, oops, I forgot to save this. That's my fault. Do need to save things. There we go. Save. Okay, perfect. So, save early, save often. Yep. So, all of that is just now available. I can have that as part of the read aloud there. I could put in a description. I could basically, those consequences are something I'm probably going to want to keep a good track of. So let's actually make sure we call those out in a way that we're going to make sure to notice them. Because, again, the key to all of what we're doing here isn't necessarily getting a word-for-word script that we're going to use whenever the players do something, and we're going to read everything, read that read aloud section necessarily line for line like we would box text for a normal adventure. Basically, this is going to be a suggestions. These are going to be, hey, fit what is going on with what the players are doing to this and take inspiration from this stuff. Basically, and so again, we're talking about the consequences here. So we're going to call out this consequences as a section. And we're going to bold that. We're going to call that, bold that. Call that, bold that. Maybe we'll put traits in italics just so we know what they are. If you want to look what that looks like when we're actually going to be previewing in the games, you can see it here. Bolded. Nice. That's all right there. Perfect. Oh, we've got a character here, Ms. Ethan. So let's go ahead and, while we're thinking about it, save this. And then we'll add a character really quickly. Just Ms. Ethan. Just like that. We could, if we want to do it in short descriptions, basically they give you a good short description here. It comes with the character. Hospitality, shoot her. Perfect. And they also give traits. And those traits are important because those are what basically what you and the players will use to decide what gets rolled, what dice they're rolling if you're trying to do an opposition roll against that character. And then we'll actually add the rest of their description right in there. Perfect. Cool. Can save that. Now that we've saved it, let's not try to edit the preview. I always forget if I have the preview up. I always immediately go. It's a 50-50 chance, and 50% of the time I guess wrong 100% of the time. But now we can have the character. Boop, just like that. Now we have her right there. We can save that. We probably also want to basically she's either as part of that. Maybe we want to add her as an associated game object to the location. Boom, just like that. Now we've got her associated with the location. We've associated those two other locations with the, basically last time we were talking about this, we associated those two other locations which are on the same bank. So we know that, all these areas are near it. We can also add that bridge as an associated location because everything connects to the bridge as well. Cool, there we go. We got bridge is also connected. Perfect. And again, the whole point of doing this is so that we can basically look at that. Now, we can look at this and be like, oh, okay. I can see really quickly when I'm looking at this in the preview mode. I come in here and I'm like, okay, it's not okay. I've got the burning possessions. Okay, those are important. They're called out separately. Okay, there's with Ethan. There's a character. Cool. I can either click on that there, or if I need to, I can scroll down here and catch her there. I've got those consequences set up right there. So if I just leave this page up while whatever nonsense is going on with the players during the game, I can basically, I've got this quick list of like, oh, you fail, you stumble, oh, cool, burns. Yeah, that makes sense. There's the burning building. Basically, it gives you a nice, basically reminds you, hey, reminder that consequences should give traits. Because that's how this game works, and traits aren't necessarily a bad thing. Like, again, this doesn't do damage. You're not like, oh no, I've taken 5 points of damage. You don't have hit points. There's no hit points in this game. Your character isn't going to die from being punched in the face. They may gain the condition broken nose. Basically, that's the consequence of failing to dodge the punch. Is you gain the the result. Basically, if you punch somebody else, that's going to be the result of your punch. Is you succeeded. Basically, there you go. Your success gives them the trait broken nose. And now, if they're trying to do something to you, they can point out that basically, if you picked up the trait broken nose. Now later on, if you're like, hey, I want to try to track things, I've got this great tracking ability on my character because of this trait they have, the GM might be like, yeah, you've got that trait, but you also have the trait broken nose right now, and so because of that trait, I'm going to downgrade you from a D10 to a D6, or I'm going to, and things like that. Or you might use that to be like, hey, so I know this guy smells really bad and it's horrible, but I don't have a working nose right now because I have the trait broken nose. Because can I function, basically, can I use that to succeed in this role better? And they'll be like, you're right. You pointed out that trait. It makes sense here. You keep going. You keep the game moving. And as a GM, having this available right in front of you is just going to be like, oh, okay, cool. I've got this ready to go. I've got the other areas. I've got more information if I need to track to it. And the best thing is, I've always got this note feature down here. So if I need to make a note of what these wacky players have done to the situation, for the things they have done, the consequences they have piled up here, like, for example, one of the consequences is the building collapses, and so you might need to note, let's see, attempt to put out the fire. Instead, collapsed the boarding house. In this case, maybe you want to list, basically you're like, hey, I want to list the fact that in this case, rumor about watch driving people from their homes. Something like that. And now I can tag that right there. I've got it. I can have it on the characters as well. Or I can have it on the, basically I can have it on, basically on this location. So if I come back to this location, I'm like, oh, right. People are going to, basically, if I come back to this area, the boarding house has collapsed, and the players have a consequence whenever they're trying to do something in here. If they're trying to basically talk to people, drum up information, get clues or something like that. They are going to have faced an uphill battle because of the fact that they are it's apparently accidentally burned down the house. And I am currently looking around because my headset's about to run out of battery. And normally that's not a problem because I have a charge in my there's a battery charging in the set itself, the dock itself, only it's not there. That's a problem. Now this headset's gonna yell at me. And I'm gonna have to suffer with it beeping in my ear until I can figure out where that battery went. Oops. Pardon for zipping close to the mic. Yes, I know, I hear you. Your life is terrible, you poor thing. How could I have done this and made you suffer so? Aha, a battery. And here's where we hope it is actually charged. Hang on, I'll be right back. Or you can just take the headset off when you're looking. I could do that too. But, you know, it's not that terrible of a beep. Hang on, I am going to take the headset off for this. 1 second. So, here I am talking, and basically it feels weird because now I'm talking without the headset on my head, and that changes the sound of my voice. And it's not the sound of a voice I'm used to hearing. And now that's gone over there. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Replacement battery. Don't hit the mic. Put that back on. Push the power button, and we hope it is fully charged. We are saved. Maybe? It popped on fully charged. There we go. Okay, good. Cool. And we're back. Awesome. Sorry for the... I'm a pro streamer now. Yep, I've had to change my headset batteries in the middle of the stream. Cool. Oops. I've gotten my merch dirty. Oh no. Yes, in case you're wondering, we do have merch. Woo. You can get all sorts of fun things, like t-shirts, hoodies, and things like that with the Lore Link branding on it. I don't know if we have a link for that in chat or not. I don't know if we're actively actually repping that or not. But, you know, I just did. In any case. Where was I before I got interrupted? Alright, so I've got those consequences there. We haven't been and do not have a link. Ha, okay, that's fine. Alright. I think it's for internal use only. Okay, we have merch and you can't have it. Ha. If you want merch, then you bug Tony Troxel, care of the Blue Sky Twitter account. What the heck? Care of the Lorelink Blue Sky account. And you can say, Tony, we want merch. And, you know, if enough people do that, we'll make merch available to the public. But until that point, it will be locked behind a paywall. Whatever that means. I've gone tremendously off script, and I will attempt to rein myself in. Hang on. Okay, so you can add these notes anywhere you want in the systems, and you can save them, and you can see that I'm suddenly chaotic neutral. I am not suddenly chaotic neutral. It's basically par for the course. I am chaotic good with chaotic neutral tendencies. And so if it's something I want to share with the players to remind them, I can click that box there. What's that, you say? We'll come back to it. Don't worry about it. But in any case, so what we're looking at is the fact that I've got those consequences that I can save, and they're now associated with this location. They're right in there. As you can see, they show up in basically whether I added that note while in edit mode, or rather, while in view-only mode. So I can add those notes while I'm basically playing the game, and I don't have to crack open the edit mode and search for the field I'm looking for, things like that. I can just jot a quick note to remember it by. Maybe it's something I want to add to the campaign itself, or I want to keep track of all the consequences there. Or maybe it's something I add to the session, because sessions are the other ways that we basically track things that happened during games. So far we've talked about just locations. And the fact that basically I'm going to probably go through and I'm going to take all of these, basically all of the locations, I'm going to want to detail them out. I'm going to want to pull those things out, those consequences, those clues, those people that pop up in there. Those are the big things I'm going to want to pull out. Probably because of the fact that I want to track all of them so that I know... and basically, I have a suggestion of what to throw out to the players in a given area based on what they do. And I want it available relatively quickly. So I just want to be kind of looking at this in one place. I can see it and be able to jump to details, things like that, without jumping around to PDF or something like that. LoreLink helps me organize it that way. And so, the clue, basically, clues are another thing. That I that I would probably create items for. If you wanted to be able to reference it in multiple things, you want to be able to track which clues your players have found. I would either list them as items or maybe events. Either one, depending on how much... Basically, the difference between them isn't much in LoreLink and will soon become less, but that's a conversation for a future time. But... it's a way of just like, how do you want to categorize it? How do you want to track it? What do you want to think when you're thinking, oh, hey, I want to add a quick note about it because I'm adding a note to a thing. What's when you do the @ symbol, what do you want to add? Just like that. And again, the important part of all of that is being able to think on your feet and react quickly. It's kind of interesting from the standpoint of, I've often referred to role-playing as improv with dice. Because kind of at its core, that's what it is. The more often that you, basically, the more deeper you get, the more rules you have in the game, the more complicated the game, the more closer to board game it becomes and less improv. The less rules that you have, the closer it gets to being more improv-y and things like that, until you end up in a situation like Fiasco, which is a role-playing game which doesn't have dice rolls at all, and it's just situations that you set up and scenes that you set up, and you just say go, and you as a group deal with it. And that becomes almost pure, it's an improv exercise that you do with your friends, is what Fiasco becomes. But the key difference is the fact that the dice and the adventure that either you've created or you found in a Quickstart and things like that, what they're there to do is they're there to help you. If you you are not basically Dimension 20 or an improv comedy group or basically at the comedy club or something like that, and you're forced to go on stage and just take random suggestions from the audience, and you have to think on your feet and create a scene from whatever gets thrown at you. And organize all of these other people who you have not worked, basically may or may not have basically experience with working with, talking with, playing with, and manage to rope them and to get them all into the scene. It is these things, these locations that you've created, these clues that you've got, these consequences you've built, these people that you've put into this adventure, they are there basically to help you when you need to think on your feet and create something. If I need to have, basically, I need to come up with something on the fly, I need a character, basically, I need to know basically what type of character is running this boarding house. Like I could generate a character on the fly that runs a boarding house, and that could be like basically it could be anything from the basically the stereotypical innkeeper, basically large jovial man who's happy to see everybody and welcome everyone in and things like that. Come, stop to my food and basically everything is fine and happy and I will help you. Or you go Mr. Thenardier route from Les Mis and basically they're money grubbing and they're basically pinching every penny and basically trying to take everything they can from anybody who dares step in their doors. Or you go with the grandmotherly figure, which is what they've kind of gone with Miss Ethan here. As you can see that they're like, oh, okay. You're like, okay, so there's so many options. What do we want to go with? What do we want to stick with? Because you have to be consistent. Because again, one of the interesting things of improv, the things to basically keep improv fun and going and things like that is if you come back to something, you should be consistent about it. You should basically, it's funnier if you do a callback to something if it is the thing that happened earlier and you remembered it. One of my favorite improv performances that I saw done that I have forgotten the name of. It's an improv group that Lin-Manuel was part of, et cetera, et cetera. It was on Broadway for a bit. But in any case, basically they just took suggestions from the audience and basically like real life stories and things like that, and they would quick to catch your eye. Yep. They would basically take suggestions from the audience, and an audience member would throw something out there, and they would do an entire improv sketch on whatever was shouted out at them. And then they would do that again for different things with different prompts and different ways of pulling information from the audience and pulling different people. And as they're doing it, it's not just, oh, hey, I need to react to what's being said to me and coming up with a funny story about it, which is its own difficult skill by itself. It's also the fact that not only are they doing that, they're also keeping an eye on the audience. If an audience is reacting really strongly to, hey, this woman just told a really funny story about this thing that happened to her while basically this embarrassing incident that was just really funny that she could now laugh about that she told us, and the audience was laughing really hard at it, I'm going to keep calling back to that in small ways. I'm going to try to link that into the next thing that happens. I'm going to try to link back to that so that the audience is like, oh, hey, we were here for that joke, and now we're here for this joke, and it's great because we're in on the joke because it's funny and it keeps rolling and building. And so you want the same thing to happen with your role-playing game, especially in this situation, which is going to be another comedy type situation. You're going to basically, this character, Miss Ethan, they're going to encounter her at the boarding house here, and maybe she only appears once. Maybe she just shows up once, and your characters they decide they don't like interacting with her, and you move on, and you just kind of dismiss the character from the rest of the game. Or maybe your characters are like, oh, this is great. Basically, you gave this character a great accent. We love that. The fact that she's basically speaks her mind, things like that, just catches with your players, and you note that fact. You're like, oh, hey, I've got something here with this character. You're going to basically pull them into other situations. You've now built this framework, and the adventure has given you this, and you've recorded it in LoreLink, and you can add it to other areas. Maybe if this happens to be a multi-session adventure, they come back to this later. Or if it's something like where you've run this scenario multiple times for different groups of people, you can be like, oh, hey, this character was a big hit last time. Maybe I can rope that character into other sections of it. And so I will include them, and I will make a note, and I will link them using that linking system. And I'll be like, oh, Miss Ethan is also here, or Miss Ethan basically is having a secret affair with this character, or Miss Ethan has a rivalry with this character, and basically is stopping by to get her shoes at the cobbler's, and is going to show up just as the players are there, and now you're going to have that chance for a funny interaction again, and you're going to keep moving, and it basically, again, it does that callback. Basically, the players are part of that joke, they like it, And it keeps going, it keeps rolling, it keeps things snowballing, so things keep going and weird, basically expanding and exploding and becoming weirder and funnier and building into this kind of living improv world that you're building here. But the key to that is if you're not, basically, I won't say if you're not good enough, basically, that's not the right way of saying it. If basically this helps you keep those things moving, helps you remember these things, helps keep you consistent, that's what Lorelink is for, is to give you that little nudge, give you that little bit. If you're like, oh, I need to pull a character into the scene because the players have done something and I need someone else to be in this shop because they pull someone random off the street, I've got a list of all the different characters which are in this scenario. They're important to this scenario. And if basically once I have that list here, cool. I can pull that in and I don't have to think about it. I don't have to develop a personality. I don't have to develop all the traits. Like, for example, you saw, because again, this game is built around not hit points or skills or something like that. It's built off of traits. Cool. I've got the traits I already have. I already got her 3 traits right here. I don't have to rebuild those. I don't have to think about them. I don't have to record them. If I give her a new trait because something happened, because as the players keep interacting with her, they keep doing things to her or helping her or basically giving her things or doing whatever, her list of traits could continue to grow. And those are going to keep happening and basically add funnier and funnier circumstances to basically things that happen later. And it becomes it basically becomes build up, punchline. It becomes set up, payoff. It makes you basically, it helps make the entire thing feel like a much more polished experience for your players when you can pull all of these things together and give them to your players in a relatively quick and straightforward way. And again, this entire thing is kind of a mystery set within a thing, so you're going to have things which are interacting with each other, and you're going to want to be able to pull things in rapidly and give them as rewards. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Basically, I need a reason for this scene to end abruptly. Oh gosh, I need to get the characters out of it. Oh, I've got a list of clues here, and one of the clues is boom, an nearby explosion that shakes the ground as the wall of the boarding house collapses. A dragon had burrowed below the wall and nervously exploded. You're like, oh, okay. So when she's trying to basically blaming dwarves as starting the fire, you can be like, oh, nope, there's obviously basically something happens. You need to get the scene moving again. You've got that list of suggestions there for clues for the boarding house. So I can add that to the boarding house. I can either add that as another section here with consequences. I can change that to clues, and I can pull that in. Just like this. Where line breaks. Actually, before I leave line break, let's. There we go. I don't know why I did that. That works better. Beautiful. Clues. Perfect. So I've got all of that there. Again, basically now I've got things like, oh, we got bridge, cool, that's a location. I could just tag that. Stone on Stone is an employer. Perfect. That's another location. I can just link between those. Now, the one sad thing I will say, basically, you do lose by transferring this into Lorelink. It's not often that I will say this, but they have done, basically, the people who made this Quickstart, and I'm hoping the book itself, have done a decent job of adding in some of those sarcastic footnotes that Terry Pratchett was known for in all the Discworld books. So, example, you have this thing here. A guilty-looking dragon is hiding in a warlobe. A tag on her collar says, "My name is Smokey. If found, please return to the Sunside Sanctuary for 6 dragons. Please do not feed me under any circumstances." You see there's a little star there. And in the actual PDF, boop, you can't see it because I have made this ridiculously large for my own reading. But if I scroll up, you can see right there, it notes the fact that it's quite a large tag. So, humorous little asides. I love this game. Just it's a small side. I love the fact that they kept that part of this game, part of the Terry Pratchett, the Terry Pratchett ethos of this snide little sarcastic remarks about this game, about that. I love it when I really kind of like it when books do that. Especially if they're in-world type books. This book has it. The Dresden Files, the Dresden Files RPG. When they have Bob the Skull narrating it, and so whenever they talk about it, they put a small note in there. I think the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, I believe, has basically, and Xanathar's Guide to Magic, I think it's the other one. Or Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Also has those little notes in there, basically coming from the author of the book or someone commenting on the book. So, all right. So I've talked about that in terms of basically, again, these are great for keeping things moving, basically allowing you to be snappy and keep the improv rolling, because that's going to be the key to like a game like this. How do you make a game like this funny? How do you have fun? How do you basically anybody, just about anybody, like I have nieces and nephews who are basically 13 or that age. They can run role-playing games. That's basically, it isn't difficult to be like, hey, something happened, roll a number. Did you roll a high number? You succeeded. Cool. Obviously, the more complicated the rule set you throw into there, it becomes a little bit harder for them to figure it out, understand, but they can read stuff, they can understand stuff. They're in school, they can do those things. But the key to basically what they don't necessarily have, and what beginning GMs don't necessarily have, is, hey, you have to be able to build up that library inside your mind of reactions to situations and know how to deal with a situation when it comes up. And that's what a lot of those great videos like Ginny D, the Dungeon, MDM, basically that one, basically the Kobold guys and things like that, and Paizo, the new Dungeon Master Guide from Wizards of the Coast supposedly has a lot of great things like that. They have a lot of great tips for, hey, how do I deal with this situation? How do I deal with this? And it isn't necessarily that basically this book will turn you into those books or those videos will turn you into perfect GMs. They give you just a little bit more of a spark to have in your mind of when something gets thrown at you, you react. You're like, oh, right. Hey, the players are stuck with basically dealing with this. How do I make these players fear these characters? How do I make these players want to actually go into combat here as opposed to trying to befriend everything? I want more combat in this venture. How do I do that? Et cetera, et cetera. It's just figuring out those things and being snappy with them, which is going to make you seem like a better GM, because you are a better GM. Congrats, you've done it. All of these clues and things like that, one of the big things you might do is you might be like, hey, I want these clues as items or events. Let's make them events, just so I could do something special with them in a bit. I'm just going to copy their names down. I'm not going to make you watch me type all of them in. Signed Dairy. That is not how you spell diary. Cool. The drawing plans. Again, that's what I really love about this quick create feature here. I could be looking at this page and I can quickly pop this up and be like, cool, cause of the fire. I don't have to leave this page. I don't have to bounce to events and back. I don't have to have two windows open. I could just quickly create it and move on. So, now that I've created this as events, basically, here's the trick I can do with the current version of LoreLink. So if this turns out to be a multi-session game, which can happen, or if I just want for planning purposes, I want to be able to have one place that I can come in here and be like, hey, where are all the clues? I've got associate events, but I can associate all of those events really quickly. Just like that. And now I can see all those events. And now you can see, because they're in a session, I've got this cool checklist thing right next to them that's built into our sessions. So if I want to basically take this entire adventure and I can pull all the clues into here, and I can have then the list of clues that the players have looked at, that I can be like, okay, they got that one, they got that one, they got that one. I can save this. Cool. Now I've got all that. I've got that information in front of me. So when I'm either we break for basically we take a break, whether it's for a couple hours, whether it's for a couple, basically whether we do it once at Thanksgiving, people love it, they want to finish it up when we come back for our holiday party in December. Perfect. Cool. I have this list right here. I have those. I can even add events. I mean, I've got events. I've got locations. If I want to associate the locations in here as well, I could just add all of those really quickly. I can say like boarding house, things like that. Again, now I've got that checklist. Just a quick boop, check. Now I know what happened. Awesome. I can excuse me, basically, I can keep track of exactly what clues they picked up, what locations they visited, etc., etc. And so LoreLink is going to help me when I come back to just be like, okay, where were they? Okay, they've gotten these locations, they've gotten these clues. So this is this situation when I'm recapping it to them at the beginning to remind them, to bring them up to speed, exactly what's happened. I can tell exactly what's happened. I can tell exactly where they visited. I can tell you which people they've associated with. I can be like, oh, okay, they associate with that person, that person. If I wanted to keep track of exactly, I could create a timeline for it, and I can associate that timeline with this, and be like, okay, here's the series of events that happened so far over the overall timeline. This is the chunk of events they've taken care of so far. I've got all of that built into here. Excuse me. And I can look at all of it and quickly pull it back out and then give it to the players. Or basically, instead, I could use this as a quick recap type situation. Oh, I am doing all of this. My gosh. Cool. Here we go. Here's LoreLink. That was the PDF. So, basically, here's the situation. I can set all of these up. I've got these cool check marks right here. Every once in a while, I have to double check the stream, make sure I'm showing what I think I'm showing. But so I've got all of these check marks right here, which are telling me I've completed these, and I can check them and be like, okay, they did this, they visited this location. If I want to put the entire adventure in here, I've got a quick link. Basically, not only can I quickly hop to the things I think are important in here, boom, go to the play slip. You click on that, I get taken to the pay slip. I can go back, and now I can take care of that. And so that's great in this game, especially if I decide to build this out into a wider world. And I've got a bunch of stuff in here which is associated with a bunch of different adventures, mysteries, or whatever. I could just pull just the one mystery into this session and just have all the pieces in one place. So I could be like, oh, okay, here's everything associated with this mystery I've built up. Basically, here are the events, here are the locations, here are the characters and items and clues and things like that. All of those are right in here. And I can just go through them and I can monitor all in one place when I'm actually playing the game, check off things they've done, basically mark things they haven't. And basically the best part is if I do all of that and I mark it off and I'm like, okay, let's go to session 2, I can even... Basically, I can either leave this session as just a record of what the mystery is. Hey, what, Mom? I can leave this session as basically as a record of what the session actually is. In terms of, hey, this is what happened, this didn't happen, etc. I can uncheck it and reuse this one session if I'm doing this over multiple times. Or if I want to, I can pull all the incomplete ones. I can select all the incomplete ones, and then I can move all those into... I can copy or move those to a new session. So if I want to, basically for session 2, if I want to be able to keep track of what they haven't, basically I want to just pull in just the clues they haven't found, just basically so I have a session 1 and a session 2. I can copy them if I want to keep this session as the pure record of this is the base mystery, here's what session 2 is. And if I want to do that, I could do, okay, what they did in session 1 was 1, 2, 3, cool. Copy those into a new session, and that will be session 1, what they actually did this session, and then I could go, these two are what's going to be in session 2, and I can copy those to a new session. Cool, now I've got session 1 and session 2 as part of that, and I've got that set up. So I don't have to, basically I don't ruin this session that I've created as a hard list of everything involved in this one mystery, and then I've created my 2 additional sessions that showed me what happened in session 1, useful for when I have to give the recap, and then I've got a session 2, which is everything they haven't done yet, and I can use it to keep track of, okay, here's what they need to do, okay, and I can then guide them through, I can drop hints, I can use those remaining clues to push them into directions and basically be like, oh, hey, so-and-so comes up to you. Corporal Angria comes up and reports the fact that, basically she reports that she smells dragons near the boarding house. And that's basically using the cause of the fires clue to help bump them towards investigating the boarding house, finding the dragon that's there, and basically moving along in the mystery, because that guides them to the Sunshine Sanctuary, etc., etc. And again, this is a small one-shot enclosed thing. It may or may not, basically, depending on your group. Basically, maybe it only takes one session to get through this. It's designed to be it's a one-shot. It's designed to be short, and so maybe you're just using this just as a checklist of what they've done, and you're keeping it in one session. And you're but it's possible because groups take different things, and people stand up, they get snacks, they stretch their legs. There are holiday parties. People come, people go. And so this is just a good, quick, easy way. And again, like we talked about earlier, we've got those notes. And this is a great plate for tracking all of those consequences that the party as a whole gains up. Like the players are where we're going to track consequences that the individual player has earned. And this is where basically I'm going to track consequences as a whole. And so basically that the watch, basically, some kind of boot stealing rig. Because of something the player characters did, where they walked out of a shop with a player of boots and they got chased through the streets by the cobbler, because something happened and they ran out of the shop and the cobbler was chasing them while they were chasing a troll or something like that. And so one of the consequences for not talking them down properly is that they have a rumor associated with the party as a whole that they're boot-stealing ring of thieves. Cool. I've got that there. So, and now basically I promised to talk about this thing, and since we're getting near the end of the stream, I should probably actually do it. This is the player sharing stuff. Basically, player sharing is a new feature we added into LoreLink within the last month or so. And basically, I can invite players to this campaign, and if I share things with the players, you'll see up here, I can share this session with the players, either just the existence of it, which just the existence means they just get the name and the short description. Or I can share the whole thing, which will show them everything in here. Now note, I say everything in here. Basically, sessions are a little bit weird because they don't get everything. They get everything in here that they can see. So if they can't see this event because you didn't share this event, because even the events have that player sharing tag on them. If I don't share that event, it's not going to show up on the list. They won't see it if I haven't shared it to them. But if I have, they'll be able to see it. They'll be able to even see the fact that it's completed. Cool. They'll know exactly what's completed. If you decide to show them the uncompleted stuff, they'll be able to see that too. And any of these notes down here that I've marked as shareable, basically shared with the players, they'll also see those as well. And so now, this could save me a little bit of time at the table or beforehand. If this turns into a multi-session thing, I can talk to the players about. I could be like, "Hey, here's the link to the campaign. You can catch up on the campaign." Either during the session or afterwards if we're between sessions and things like that, and the players want to check back in and be like, what exactly happened? Oh, right, you set this session up, you cleared the things out. Before you shared it, you copied everything incomplete out. So all they can see is the complete things, all they can see is the campaign notes that you shared with them, those consequences they've taken as a party, of anything funny that has happened. It's all right here in one page. You invite them to the session, then you share this information with them and you send them the link to it, and boom, they've got an instant recap that saves you just that little bit of time at the table. It basically, every time you have to do it, basically, it's a little bit of, oh, hey, we're doing that. Sometimes the recap is good, as basically, I will always basically take the hint that, basically take the advice that the tune from Steamjack and Games, written by famous game developer Warren Spector, is a extreme comedy game. You're playing cartoon characters in absurd cartoon character situations. And one piece of advice which has always stuck me from the book is, if you can't figure out what to do, recap. If your players can't figure out what to do, recapping can also help them. It's the idea of the fact that if you stop, you go back through, basically, something happened, ridiculous happens, and you turn to the next player, and they go, you just recap what is going on to them. You're like, okay, you guys have come into this room, as you come into this shop, you're basically a short dwarf, basically a tall troll, a medium-sized human, have all come in, you're all asking for the same boot size. And basically the troll has picked up one pair of boots and basically attempting to lick it, has instead accidentally swallowed one of the boots. The dwarf is jumping on his back to try to dislodge the boot, and the human is looking at them but continuing to ignore that and asking them what's going on. What do you want to do? And then basically it's funny. It's usually good for a couple more laughs at the table as everyone realizes exactly just how absurd the situation they've locked themselves into. B, it buys you and or the player time to think about exactly what's going on. It reminds you of everything that's happening in the scene, all the bits and parts that may be moving, all those moving gears, and gives them a place to be able to jump back into. Recaps are funny. Recaps are great. There's something valuable in the recap. And that's not to say that this feature here replaces that, but this feature can help, basically, for non-comedy instances. It can keep things moving. It can keep the players being able to figure. The players don't necessarily have to ask you, "Hey, what was the name of that location we visited before with the innkeeper? What was the name of?" They can see the location. They pop the locations. They're like, "Oh, right, and Miss Ethan's boarding house, right, there it is. It's right there. It's a list of places that we visited, and I can see that because the GM went in and shared the existence of it, or fully shared it. If you fully shared it, maybe they come in and they're like, oh, right, that's right. There's the innkeeper. It's located. It's near those things. We accidentally collapsed the boarding house during that. Right, cool. I'm going to use that, and it gives them a chance to keep things going on their end. Because again, you're doing your part of it to keep things moving and things like that. But if the players are taking notes or something like that, sure, maybe they're keep track of that. If not, they've got their phones. They can look up the campaign. They can add their own notes to the campaign themselves, so they can remind themselves or remind their friends of consequences or other things or things they want to investigate later, etc., etc. All of those things basically keep the game moving, keep the game rolling, and it just means the fact that everyone's having a good time and you're not spending a bunch of time buried in the PDF or basically a rule book, if this is a large, basically when a full rule book comes out, or searching through somebody's notebook trying to remember exactly what happened when, etc., etc. Um, so, and again, all of that is basically towards the purposes of keeping basically because it's meant to be a light, fun game. It's meant to be a situation where you want things to keep moving. You want the comedy of the one scene to bleed into the comedy of the next scene, for you to do callbacks to it, for your players to recognize what the callbacks are to. Like if you start talking about, like, oh, there's this old lady there and she's basically just got a voice that can cut glass, they're like, oh no, we know who that is. And the players like, oh gosh, that's that innkeeper again. Cool. Basically, callback, pay, basically punchline, pay, basically setup, payoff. Cool. Everything is moving, everything is flowing, people are having a good time. And if you can, that may also just help you get through the adventure in the one shot. Basically, and that is basically going through the entire thing gives everybody a sense of satisfaction. You reach the end, everything had basically all the build up that you put into this, all the build up that the module writers have put into this, the people who wrote the Quickstart have put in a bunch of time and effort in building up to this situation, and then having it explode and then having the characters pick up the pieces and deal with it is a great introduction to how a role-playing session works in kind of condensed. That's kind of the fun part about all of basically about running a mystery adventure one shot like this is it's a build up and it's a payoff, and it's going to have silly scenarios and silly situations, but it's all going to build up to something, and then it's going to kind of explode, and then you'll be like, oh, and that's what role playing is about. And you can look at your players and be like, and that's what it's like. That's what it means to that's what a role-playing session is like. And they're like, this isn't D&D. That's not what it's like. It's like, yeah, actually, no, this is like what D&D is. Just D&D has a few more rails to keep things in certain tracks and things like that. That Pathfinder has more rules and things, so you could do even basically you could do even crazier things and different to basically to build up different interactions and things like that. And it's a great way of easing people in who are like, yeah, I've heard about it, but basically it feels like you have to be this master improv comedian to play it, or you have to know this big book of rules. You have to look up, memorize all of that. You're like, no, we can play it right here. I've got one set of dice, and with one set of dice, is basically in this system, I can put it down in the center of the table. I can hand out these character sheets, or I can send you links to the PDF, and you pick out your character in the character sheet. And you just go and you have fun, and it's a great time, and it's a great way to spend an evening. It's a good time to basically just laughing and having fun and basically letting things get crazier and sillier. And you get to basically, as you get to keep track of things, basically using LoreLink, you can keep things flowing, you can keep things moving, and all of those things can be basically just keep bouncing off of it and keep exploding, and it keeps expanding bigger and bigger and bigger until basically it just kind of explodes and everyone's just laughing and having a great time, and they just remember, oh yeah, that was actually a fun, cool activity. We want to do that again. I want to run that for my friends. I want to do that. And you can keep going. So basically, if you're like, hey, I want to know about all of basically, so cool, basically, can I get LoreLink? Basically, this sounds great. Can I get LoreLink for the holiday season? I don't want basically, but my money's a little strapped because, hey, I've got holiday gifts and Thanksgiving to pay for, and we've got next year and all the doom and gloom and uncertainty. It's fine. We understand. LoreLink has a free World Tier account. You can see the link right there in chat right now. If you go to that page, you can sign up for our World Tier. Our World Tier is our free tier. What that means is that you will be able to create 2 campaigns. Campaign is all of this stuff that you see here. You can create basically 2 of those campaigns for free. The only thing you don't get access to is you don't get the hotspot feature on the maps. So this part here, where you can put hotspots on the map, you don't get to do that. Sorry, that's a higher level feature. That's a paid tier thing, and player sharing is something that you can access, but not something you can grant. Meaning, if someone else in the system gives you access to their campaign, you can view their campaigns with a World Tier account, but you can't share your campaign with someone else. Right now, that is a paid tier only level. But again, those things aren't necessary to run this. Again, the location stuff, you still have this hierarchy that you can use to look at stuff, and you can still have the map in there, you just can't use the hotspots to jump through it. Basically, The hotspots help you save a little bit of time. The player sharing features are great, and basically we've talked about them. But for a one shot, basically if you're just wanting to run run a one shot for the holiday, you could dump your one shot in. It doesn't basically. This is the quick start that basically Modiphius has provided is a great way of doing it. There are lots of other ones out there too you can find though. Lots of basically a lot of different adventures have little quick start guides that have quick little one shot adventures in them that you can put into Lore Link and then have available on your phone and be able to pull out and be like, hey, I want to play a one shot of Mothership because we want to keep the tradition alive of scary, spooky holiday parties and ghost stories and things like that. Cool. Let's run a Mothership game. Oh, hey, we want a comedy type situation. Let's run basically let's run the basically Discworld. Well, all of us are Trekkies here. Basically, my parents are Trekkies. They're big into that. They've always wanted to basically the idea of role playing as a starship captain or first mate sounds like fun. The Star Trek system has a quick start guide as well with a free adventure that you can also put into Lore Link and have available and ready to go. So you could be that cool guy who shows up, or cool gal, cool person. There's a better word for it. You could be that cool person who shows up at the holiday party. First officer, first mate, close enough. Pirates. You can be that cool person that shows up to a holiday party and basically can be like, hey, do anyone want to role play? You're like, oh, we can't role play. We don't have time or prep. You're like, no, it's cool. I've got a set of dice and we can do it. And there you go. You could be that person. And you could do it with free with Lore Link. If any of those systems that I've just mentioned sound interesting to you, you're like, how would you put in a Star Trek adventure into Lore Link? How would I run a Mothership game in Lore Link? Are there some pitfalls or things I should be careful of when I'm running horror games and things like that? Check out that systems pages. A lot of the adventures that a lot of the systems I just talked about are listed in that page, plus a bunch of other ones that we've looked at and basically taken apart, just like we did with Discworld here. You could check them out there. You could see, oh, hey, that's how we'd run a D&D, Pathfinder, Starfinder, Mothership, all of those basically. Floria. If you want another fun, cute game, basically you're like, oh, I don't want to play with dice, and basically I don't want to basically all that dice and other stuff is complicated. Well, how about drawing? Check out Floria. Floria is a great system where basically all of your stuff is drawing and filling in colors to do things on basically the thing. It's just you get to have a great time playing that. So check those out on the systems page. So as a brief note, basically you may have noticed at the top of the stream we have basically a list of upcoming activities in terms of what we are going to be doing next. There is a slight correction to that. Normally we were going to be at the end of this week be playing this Discworld adventure with the Lore Link players. However, it is the holidays, and as such, schedules are, much like your campaign and your group, schedules are all over the place, and people basically have family, medical, and other type of things, and as such, we've had to reschedule the game that was scheduled for this Friday, the 22nd, and is now instead scheduled for Friday, December 6th. So, if you want to see Discworld in action, come back on Friday, December 6th, and we will actually be playing through this very campaign. I will have filled out the rest of this into Lore Link, and you'll be able to watch me sort through it on Lore Link. Basically, in a picture right below me, you'll be able to then see the adventure and the map and things like that off to the side. I will always remember which way is which. And be able to watch them play through it, react, and then come and laugh along with us and enjoy basically just a bunch of chaos, because this group is already chaotic and we're going to give them Discworld and it's only going to get worse. If you want to know exactly when that happens, in case things go, in case schedules change and things like that, what's the best way to do that? Glad you asked, Invisible Voices in My Head. Invisible voices in my head, as opposed to visible voices in my head. Moving on. You can subscribe. You can follow this channel. Following this channel gets you an alert saying, hey, we've gone live. subscribing to this channel says, hey, these people are cool and I want them to keep doing what they're doing. Subscribing with Amazon Prime or Twitch, basically Amazon Gaming, I believe is what it's called now. So basically, if you have an Amazon Prime account and you link it to your Twitch account, you could use Amazon Gaming to give us a free subscription. Costs you nothing, costs $5 of Jeff Bezos's basically money, which we promise, unlike him, do not spend on a yacht. Amazon Prime Gaming. So basically that's awesome. Basically it's a great one. Basically we really appreciate it. We do not require basically, but we always appreciate. Basically we're not going to lock stuff behind paywalls or things like that for subscribers and things like that. If you're watching this on YouTube, either now or in the future, hi, hello the future people watching this in the VOD. Thanks for stopping by, and thanks for watching us on YouTube. We appreciate that. If you could like this video, if you could subscribe to our channel on there. Oh, yeah, and the emotes. The emotes are basically, we do have cool emotes. We have dice jails and dice on fire and things like that. I always forget about those. But those exist. So if you really, basically, if you want, you can subscribe to subscribing to us on Twitch gets you access to those emotes. Subscribing to us on YouTube gets you our gratitude. It helps us elevate us in the algorithm, and that should bounce things on the screen. And I just noticed that this one doesn't have the emote wall, and I need to fix that. My bad. In any case, but you can subscribe and like to our video on there. If you want to follow us, basically get up-to-the-date things on and conversations about role-playing stuff, and also see cool see other creators on Blue Sky, because Blue Sky is the cool happening place. You should totally be on there and not the other thing that used to be blue. You can follow us on there, and our social media guy, aka our communications manager, aka the awesome and cool Tony Troxel, does a great job of curating some cool TTRPG stuff that you should be following and looking at and know about, and you can catch all that on Blue Sky. We also have a Facebook. We also have Facebook. We also have conversations and things like that where we talk about basically cool, fun things that we've done with adventures and things like that. Like, a little bit thick there, buddy. Yeah, hey, you're cool. You get the basically. I handle that where I can. In any basically, you can check those out on there, and that gives you those things. If you're like, hey, all social media is kind of a trash fire right now, and I'd rather not interact with it. Could you just send me that information? Me personally? Yes, the answer is great. We have a newsletter. It comes directly to your inbox. No other communication is necessary other than the initial sign up at that link right there. And once a month, we promise, once a month, it comes directly to your it comes directly to your inbox, and it lists all the things we've done in the past. Basically all the streams and things like that, new features we've released, development plans for the future, and any upcoming streams and things like that are all in there. Yeah, the moment you said the command, I was like, why is it there twice? Oh, okay. Timers and things like that. Isn't it great? So, all of that to say, thank you for watching. Thank you for stopping by and listening, whether you're watching us here on Twitch or on YouTube. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate that. If you want it, basically, please check out Lorelink. Send us your feedback. Basically, let us know. Basically, cool, fun games that you're running. And basically, you're running over the holidays and things like that. Our social media person, our communications manager, basically loves the interaction. So go interact with them on Blue Sky. It'll be great. All right. So that is all I have for tonight. And so I'm going to, we're going to sign off for now, and we will catch you all next week for some video games of some sort or another. It might even be on the stream card. We'll find out.